David, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Johnny?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so excited to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. We've had conversations in the past about
Yeah,
things that are going on over at your church, at First Church of God in St. Joe. But this is about you. I want to get
okay,
to know you as the person, as David
okay.
Colp. So
Hopefully it's not super boring.
we'll try not to be super boring. So I guess let's start right from the beginning, just like the show's called. How did you make your way to Southwest Michigan? Because you're not originally from this area, right?
No, no. And thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity. So yeah, as the more I talk, you'll probably hear that a little bit of that Southern accent. So I had been serving in Ohio
Mm.
for about 12 years as a pastor, and got a call from the church here in St. Joe, and they were looking for a pastor. Their senior pastor had left, and so they were looking for somebody, and I was totally not interested, loving life in Ohio, and so I told them no. And then they called back, and they said, "Well, can we just send you some information?" This was like 9 months later. I'm like, "Well, okay." So they sent me some information about the church and the community, which was super interesting. And I was sitting with an associate pastor of mine that worked for me. And I said, "Hey, I got this call from this church in St. Joseph, Michigan. Check out this information about the community and
Yeah.
whatever." And he said, "So are you thinking about going?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm going to call him back today and tell him I'm not interested." And he said, "Well, did you pray about it?" Which was super insulting. Of course, I'm a pastor. I pray about everything, but I really hadn't prayed about
Mm.
it. So, so I said, no, I guess I should do that. So I was supposed to call him that day. So
Mm.
I called him, called the guy, called the church, and said, "Hey, I'm not really interested, but I'm praying about it." And they're like, "Well, could we at least talk to you?" So anyway,
Sure.
that started this whole thing, and here we are. Because after I prayed about it, just fell in love with the community and the church, and it was just a great fit. So that's my story.
And that was what year?
That was 2000, like 2006.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And so you were in Ohio. Where did you come from in the beginning? Where were
yeah.
you born and raised?
Southern Illinois,
Okay.
Marion, Illinois, a little small town in Southern Illinois. My parents still live on the same street, so that's
Oh,
where I grew
nice.
up. And yeah, so yeah,
That's
Southern Illinois.
fantastic.
There's not much going on in Marion.
Hey, everybody loves a good small town, and that's why we love,
Yeah.
love Southwest Michigan. But it's
Yes.
always fascinating to me of what brings people to Southwest
Yeah.
Michigan. So
Yeah.
I love hearing about that. So I guess we're done now. I guess this conversation.
That was it. Born in Marion. Yeah. So I said, I hope this is not super boring.
So what was it like growing up? I mean, obviously you've have this career as and a calling as becoming a pastor, but at what point in your life did you realize, hey, this is what I want to do? Because not everybody, when they're a kid, 5, 10 years old, says, I want to be a pastor. I mean, some
Yeah.
do, but
Right.
what point did you say, I think this is something I want to do?
Yeah. So I was like 16 years old, and I was thinking about the future and what I want to do. And so I had three goals. I want to have a lot of money, I wanted to have a beautiful wife, and I want to drive an awesome car, a sports car. So, I'm 16, so
Yeah,
you
of
have to take
course.
that. Yeah. Yeah. So as I was just thinking, praying about the future, I just really felt like I was at this youth convention and really thinking about that, praying about that, and I just felt like this overwhelming sense that I should go into ministry, and it was totally diametrically different than anything I had ever considered, because you don't really check a lot of those boxes
Hmm.
of the things that I had thought that I wanted by being a pastor. Um, so it was just this. I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, if you're a Trekkie.
I do enjoy Star
Okay.
Trek. I won't consider myself a Trekkie though.
Okay. So then Star Trek, Spock used to do this Vulcan mind meld where he could like get into the mind of an
Mm.
individual. So the way I've related it over the years is I feel like God did kind of a Vulcan mind meld, and I just really, I'm not hearing the voice of God all the time or anything like that, but I just had this overwhelming sense that this is what you should do, and so radically changed the trajectory of my life. And so then I started preparing for ministry at
Wow.
16. So
Wow. That's not something that every 16-year-old
no.
considers or has those dreams. Now, you mentioned those three things that you got. Now, do you have all of those three things? Because
Well,
I can say just from knowing you, you've got the beautiful wife part now, the
yes.
beautiful
So
family. So what
yeah.
about the sports car and the lot of money?
Well, so 2 years, I think it's 2 years ago, I was sitting around talking to some guys, and this guy said, "I've got this Mazda Miata, and I've always wanted one
Okay.
little Mazda." So I just got a 1997 Mazda Miata. So it's my little fun toy car, and so I've got the beautiful wife, got the even though it's 20 whatever years old, but it's a cool little sports car.
Yeah.
And money, you get 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. If I was
Hey,
playing baseball, it'd be great.
yeah. Riches are not always money,
No,
which is
right.
an obvious thing for people.
Absolutely.
We're
Yep.
definitely fulfilling that end of the
Yeah.
bargain. So you were 16 years old. Uh, so take me to that point. Were you a good public speaker? Because obviously, as a pastor, public speaking is one aspect of the job.
Right.
So did you enjoy that, or were you a quiet person? What was it like?
So I was a card carrying member of the math and science club. So I was wasn't a athlete, was not, wasn't in
Mhm.
drama or any uh, didn't do any public speaking. I was the kid that sat in the corner and just kept to myself. And so no, and that's why it was so radically different for me, because it was so different than anything I had ever done before,
Yeah.
or that I thought I didn't have. I don't have any of those skills. I can't get up in front of people. I can't talk. But I think that helped because I knew God's gonna have to help me if I'm gonna do
Mhm.
this. So I've lived with that realization. That's been helpful. So
I'm the same way. I mean, I was an athlete, but I'm also a nerd. But the
yeah,
public speaking thing, even the career that I'm
yeah,
in right now,
yeah,
talking in front of people all the
yeah.
time and to people, I didn't enjoy doing
No,
that.
right.
I was a of five. I have four other brothers. I was kind of the young, quiet one that stood behind my brothers, and
Yeah,
they kind of did all the talking and the any fights that happened, I was behind them.
right.
So that's sort of how my life changed. But
Yeah, yeah,
so you grew up and did all that. What were some of your mentors when you were growing up? Were your parents, or was there
yeah.
somebody else that really inspired you?
Yeah. Well, I have great parents. Again, as I said, my parents live on that same street that I grew up on. My dad was a State Farm insurance agent for 45 years. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I was probably in college, maybe
Mhm.
high school or college. I really thought, because it's the way that she talked to me, I thought I was the smartest person in the world. She was just so affirming, so
Mhm.
encouraging. You can do anything. All that. So I would attribute just a lot of that self confidence that I had early on. My mom, my parents were awesome. So they were great mentors. So I learned a lot from them. And then I had a youth pastor that was super instrumental, and then a senior pastor that was at the church I was at. And when I was in high school, then when I felt that call, then he took me under his wing and really taught me how to be a pastor. And I went after school every day, and we spent a lot of time together. And he called me his junior associate, which was a goofy
Oh,
title, but again, a 16-year-old kid, that was a big deal. So
so as let me ask you this: as a pastor, people look to you and as a counselor, as a for inspiration, whether it be for your sermon or one on one and guidance and things like that. Who do you look for those guidance and those type of things? Do you talk to other pastors, or does your
yeah,
wife kind of counsel
yeah,
you when you're having something
yeah.
going on that you need help with?
Well, I would say definitely that my wife, Crystal, is my best confidant and best person to get advice. I bounce a lot of things off of her, and hey, what do you think? And
Mhm.
so I've learned to listen to her. She reads people really super well, and like, hey, what do you think about this? And so she's great. So I'd be at the top of the list for sure. But I think I just want to continue to learn. So I read a ton, listen to podcasts like yourself. Uh, just I'm all the time trying to learn. Just finished a master's in church leadership, so I'm working on my doctorate now. And so just I want to always be learning, always be growing. There's always someone to learn from, and I love the idea too that you don't just learn from people that are further along, but that you can learn from anybody if you're paying attention. You can learn from a young person,
Mhm.
somebody
Yeah,
that's just brand new in whatever field you're in. If you're paying attention, there's things to be learned from everybody. If you can be humble enough to pay attention. So I'm always on the lookout for what can I learn or grow. How can I? Yeah.
I love that. No, not everybody's a finished product, and not everybody has that always has the answers for
Right.
things, and
Right.
so that's great to hear. What's the biggest challenge that you've faced in your life so far?
Yeah. Probably personally, this past year, my youngest son, he's 23. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer. So that was, I've stood in pulpits and I've
Mhm.
preached and I've walked alongside people that they've had issues, similar issues,
Sure.
um, and all these things that I've said. Now I suddenly do I actually believe what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Is this faith that I have, this belief that I have, this belief system I have? Does it make a difference for me? So that was a just a horrific challenge for my wife and I, and our son, obviously.
yeah,
So that's a top challenge
absolutely.
personally for us. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's and anything in life and challenges that you have, you're able to like you said, learn from that and use that as those coming or overcoming challenges, but even using that within your message and when you're
yeah,
talking to people. I
yeah,
know there's
yeah,
so many times that any times growing up that I'll hear a pastor in the sermon, it's just so great when it's like, "Oh, I feel like he's talking to me, and that's
yeah.
something that I'm going through,"
Right.
and using your real life situations into what you're talking about is, I
Yeah,
think, the
yeah,
a great thing
yeah,
that you do.
yeah,
And I've
yeah,
always enjoyed I mean, you as a pastor, I enjoy, hearing your sermons and hearing those conversations about that, so that's another reason why I wanted to chat with you
yeah,
about yourself, but,
yeah,
so we heard about that, and tell me a little more about your kids, because obviously, you had mentors when you were growing up, and obviously your kids, they're looking to you for that guidance. What is maybe a lesson that you learned as you were growing up and maturing that you are now passing on to your kids and teaching your kids?
yeah. Well, a couple things like with our son, and by the way, not to bury the lead, he's great, had surgery, feel like they got the cancer and all that.
Yeah,
So just in case somebody's listening, they're like, "Oh, what happened with that?" Don't want to have leave somebody hanging.
right.
So that's all good.
Good. That's
But so
great.
the thing I told him, one key lesson, I said, I don't know why, who knows why we go through things in life.
Mhm.
There's no easy answers to those things most of the time. But I said, I just would encourage you to learn find the lessons in this and learn them the first time. Uh, life just gets tough, and there's all kinds of lessons to be learned all on the way. And I've always thought, I don't want to be in the remedial class where I should have learned something the first time, and now I got to go through that again to learn that lesson again.
Mhm.
So that's what I've tried to instill in the boys. I've got a 26-year-old Caleb, and then 23-year-old Jacob. So that's a key lesson. And I think just humility. There is just not enough humility in the world. So I've really tried to instill in our boys, just to be a humble leader. Yeah,
Yeah, and what I've noticed, in these past couple, years with this pandemic is that, we've all been trying to relearn new things and new skills, and one thing that I love that I've observed is that, you and your family, you love to have fun, and I know when you guys were
yeah,
first starting out and trying to learn new ways to stay connected with people, as a church or just as individuals trying to stay connected with people, your sons definitely have, great personalities, I think a good
yeah,
meld of both you and your wonderful wife, to be
yeah,
able to kind of poke fun at you,
Yep.
either not knowing
Yep.
technology or just
Yep.
all kinds of different things.
Yeah, we've done some stuff, some podcast stuff, and whatever. Here's what I love. My favorite quote for my boys is them telling me, "David, Dad, you're the most immature adult we know." So I carry that as a badge of honor,
Now,
because life's just too short not to
absolutely.
have some fun, enjoy it, laugh. Yeah,
And we talked about how life changes and things happen, and like you said about when your son was diagnosed with testicular cancer, that obviously is something that is life changing for him and for you. But what was it like? Take me back even further when your first son was born.
yeah,
How did that change you, not only as a pastor, but as just an individual?
yeah. Well, I think I remember that day that in the hospital room when he was born, and he's crying like crazy, and I went over and just said, because I would talk to him before he was born.
Yeah.
So I walked over. He's in the little thing. The nurses taking care of him, cleaning him up, and all that. And I just cleaning him up, and I just leaned over and I said, "It's okay, little buddy," and he stopped crying, and it was just this surreal moment, like I am a father. Like he knows my voice. It was just
Right.
this super cool, and from that point on, I was, life's just different. It was just different. Like I've got, responsibility. This,
Mhm.
this I got. There's yeah. It's just I've got to take some things really seriously now. This is somebody's looking out or looking up to me. I've got to yeah. It's
And
just different. Yeah.
and that's the moment you probably also realized you have influence on somebody
Yes.
that is
Yeah.
very big, and everything that, and also you got to watch your words, you got to watch
Yes.
your actions and
Yes.
everything you do,
Yes.
because your children from birth will continue to just either mimic you or learn different things for you, pick up
Yeah.
on all of those different
Yeah.
things. Has either of your sons decided to follow your path and also be pastors?
No, they're both followers of Christ, but not pastors. My youngest son actually works at a church in Oklahoma City, but he works in HR, human resources, in at the church, does data analytics. So, which is interesting. He's in the church, but not as a pastor. Yeah,
So we've learned a little bit more about where we came from and what made you come to Southwest Michigan, and so then we'll, I guess, now fast forward back to that, what we talked about earlier about you making that decision. You had that, you finally prayed about it, even though you at first were hesitant about coming to Southwest
right.
Michigan. Um, then when you got here, what was your impression? Because you probably came to visit, to
Yeah,
kind of scope things out and learn
yeah,
about the community, but that's only, a small amount of really, I guess, the taste of what you're going to experience. So what was that moment like?
yeah. Well, I just, this is a great church. This church that we're at, First Church, has been in the community 100 years. So just had this wonderful reputation, right in the middle of town. Great people, great leaders. The leadership culture at the church was really healthy. So I just saw it as this blank slate in a smaller community, and just felt like, this is a place where we could really move the dial. We could really make a difference. We could do some things that could just impact in a very positive way this community. So that
Yeah.
that was early on my first thoughts. Just the possibilities of what could be, and we just love this community too.
Yeah.
What's not to love?
Is it better than Ohio?
Um,
Let's end that debate right now. I mean, because there's obviously rivalries of many
yeah,
ways between Ohio and Michigan, not only college football, but just being neighboring states. There's always people that will
right.
be against either one of them. So, Michigan or Ohio, what's your vote?
Well, if you're to live somewhere, absolutely, Michigan. Michigan is the place to live. Southwest Michigan is beautiful. You got the lake. You've got it's great winters. The summer is wonderful. Those 2 weeks of the year are just wonderful. So just as a place to live, Michigan, hands down, absolutely. Because where we lived in Ohio, the Ohio Valley,
Yeah.
where we were north of Cincinnati, you had to take your car every year and get the exhaust checked
Mhm.
because the air quality was so horrible.
Yep.
So Michigan, yeah, thumbs up to Michigan. Now I will say I'm still an Ohio State fan. So football, I'd have to check the Ohio State box for
Okay.
football.
All right. So yeah, half and a half vote. I'll give you
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
So what are your interests outside of your career and what you do? Obviously, being a part of the community in so many different ways, but what's your areas of interest besides being a Trekkie?
Yeah, yeah. I love board games.
Okay.
I'm a nerd at heart, so I still play video games from my original Atari 2600 back in the day
Ooh.
till I've been trying to get a PlayStation 5, but those are
Does the Atari
difficult.
still work?
No, I
No,
wish I still had the Atari.
because I have an old Atari.
Oh, do you really?
Actually,
Oh, yeah,
it's in a box in
really?
this room somewhere.
Yes,
That is actually the
yes,
Atari that my brothers and I
yeah,
played with when I was a kid, and we had the
yeah,
Nintendo, we had
yeah,
the Sega Genesis, we had
yeah,
all the different ones,
yeah.
but my brother uncovered, what he lives now in North Carolina. He said, "I haven't figured out how to get this to work because we know with technology, with TVs, all the different inputs are different than what we had,
Right, right,
as we were
right.
younger." But yeah,
Yeah.
I have an Atari that if you could figure it out, I would be willing to pass that on, or we can, share custody of the Atari because I've got some great games that
Yeah,
we can
that's
play as
awesome.
well.
That's
What about
awesome.
board games? What's the board game of choice? I'm thinking like Settlers of Catan, maybe?
I like Settlers. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. That's good. So at the risk of making myself look really bad, one of my favorite games right now is called Blood Rage.
Okay.
So
What is that?
it's this Norse. You're a Viking type guy, and you got to
Okay.
destroy the world. Ragnarok is coming. The world's about to be destroyed, and so it's a ravage, pillage, plunder, maim kind of a.
Interesting. And
It's a nice release from pastoring to go home, play a board game with some friends, and yeah,
right. No, I know that's great. I mean, well,
unplug and yeah.
if you think about it, there's a lot of crazy stories that happen in the Bible of battles and wars and all that stuff. So there is a connection, I would say.
What can I tell you? This quick little story.
Absolutely.
I was at a meeting of pastors,
Hmm.
and so there were these pastors, and we are sitting in the back, and we got on the subject of board games, and I said, they said, "What's your favorite board game?" I said, "Well, I'm really liking Blood Rage right now." And there was this other pastor who was like in front, a couple rows up, and he overhears, and he turns around, and he's like, "Well, that doesn't seem very pastoral." I mean, he's serious. He's like, "That doesn't seem very
Oh wow.
pastoral that you play games like that." And I'm like, "Have you read the Old Testament?" Have you? I mean, there's all kinds of battles and all kinds of stuff, wars and so.
If the Bible was a video game, it would be
Oh,
probably it would
ah,
a very violent game with
there.
different things that happen in there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. Yeah,
So, what have you learned now that you've been in this area? What is another, I guess, favorite thing that you love about Southwest Michigan?
well, I love that you can partner together. There's some great organizations. I mean, we partner with organizations like Mosaic, Connexus in town, the United Way. There's just some great leaders that really have a heart. The leaders at Whirlpool, we've been able to do some things together. So just to see just that heart for our area, and even though there's at times disagreements or whatever about some of the nuances, that
Sure.
there's just really a heart to see this area, move forward, and I love that. So you can work together. So that's what I've found here.
Yeah, discussions are what great ideas come from.
Right,
Even if it's a heated discussion
right,
about
right,
something, that
right.
differences make
Yeah,
different ideas
yeah,
come about.
yeah. And if you don't care, I love that idea. If you don't care who gets the credit, I forget who said that. I didn't say that originally, but if you don't care who gets the credit, it's just amazing what you can accomplish. And you see that in our area.
Well, I'll tell you what's sort of with this podcast, what I've learned and where I found a lot of the great people to talk to is sort of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of
Yeah,
scenario. Uh, Fun fact: I actually went to preschool at First Church
Oh,
of God.
really? Yeah. Yeah.
And and probably one of the first times I saw you preach was actually at some I had many family members and friends that passed away, and you
Yeah.
actually were the preacher at a couple
Yeah.
of the different funerals. And I remember as overcome with emotion from all those funerals. I just
Yeah.
One of the other things that I took out of it was that guy's a good preacher. I like that guy. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, obviously, with that's one of those other aspects of the job,
Yeah.
is whether it be a wedding,
Yeah.
a birth, where a baby's being confirmed into the church, or a funeral. So you're in
Yeah.
all different aspects of being a pastor.
Yeah.
Is really it's all different stages of life.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard to speak at funerals, because I can barely speak at a
Yeah.
funeral,
Yeah.
whether it's a best friend or a family member or somebody I know casually.
Yeah.
How do you get through that?
Well, for me, like think about a funeral in particular, a funeral, I think more so than a wedding or some
Mhm.
of those other places you mentioned, a funeral, people are really looking for help.
Yeah.
They come and, my loved one's died. I'm struggling with some of the, maybe this is a why question,
Mhm.
or just I'm not hurting. This is painful. What am I going to do? How's my life going to change? So what I love is as you are in that setting, you have the
Mhm.
chance to really help people, more so than some other places. I think that it's just such an important role as a pastor, that moment especially. So I get more excited. Not excited is a bad word, but
Sure.
I see the opportunities
Yeah.
much more again in that funeral setting than like a wedding. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
let's be honest, Johnny. Who wants to be at a wedding?
not many. You want it to be. What I will say about weddings, especially when it comes to the church ceremony, is anytime I want the ceremony to be quick.
Right.
It's like,
Let's get the rehearsal, or I mean
chase here,
the
let's go to the yeah.
reception.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's fun and exciting to
Right.
see the love and the family
Right.
come together, but
Right.
hey, let's celebrate and
Yeah.
let's have a
Yeah.
dance or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right. Where a
Uh,
funeral, people
yeah,
are looking for some answers, for some help. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you this: what's something besides that we've learned? You're a Trekkie. You learned Blood Rage is your favorite board game, uh, and you think you like Michigan over Ohio. So I've learned a lot about you. But what is something that maybe somebody may not know about you, or I guess let me reword it: something that people should know about you besides just being, what people see every day.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I think the thing that really gets me excited is the opportunity is that to reshape the way people see the church.
Mm,
That I love the idea that as a follower of Christ, that we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. So we can get together on the weekends and we can worship God and we can grow in our faith and all
mm,
that. But the rest of the week, am I really making a difference? And
sure.
to change the narrative, like in our community, I want us to be able to show that it should be a 7 day week type
Hmm.
thing, that we should be, as the body of Christ, we should be making a difference in our community. And so the narrative that's been out, like, oh, the church is, hey, give me your
Hmm.
money if you need to be like us and you need to come,
Sure.
and if you come in our building, then we'll love on you. But and I just love the opportunity, and that's what I want to be about, is getting
Yeah.
the church outside the walls and making a difference in the community. And so that's
Oh,
that's something that I would hope. I'm not just the normal run of the mill preacher guy.
yeah. Yeah, it's not just the guy you see on Sundays, and that's the only thing. And I agree that is an important thing for not only a pastor in a church, but also for everybody. Is that bringing the community together and having conversations about stuff, and not just thinking about, okay, well, I got to go to church on Sunday, or I got to do this one group thing here once a week. Just be thinking about community as a whole, because if
Yeah.
you go back into the history books of things is that many pastors and people of the church were part of the community and they saw them every day. And
Yeah.
also, a lot of pastors or religious guys were brewers and they made beer. That right there, being in a pub and camaraderie there is also another aspect. So I don't know if you have interest in brewing beer or not, but
I have that has not been something I've done as of yet. So,
okay.
but true. To your point, every universities, hospital
Hmm.
systems, nonprofits that are just making a world of difference. A lot of those started. They were faith based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if you were to, you read a lot, you have podcast stuff that you do. So I don't know what I would call this, but if you had, whether it be an autobiography or say a board game, we could go on that route. If you had either of those things, what would you call it?
Well, if I had a autobiography, maybe I'll
Mhm. Yeah.
answer it that way. I would want to call it "Life's Too Short to Be Grouchy."
Mm,
I you know the I just especially COVID, people have just
mhm.
gotten grouchy.
I agree.
It seems to me. I mean, it's so difficult to lead in this culture that we're in right now. And so just helping people to see, you know what, just don't take that so seriously. Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take life so seriously. Have some fun, lighten up. Give people the benefit of the doubt, all those things. That's what I would want to talk about if I had a platform to, yeah, to try and encourage people.
Absolutely. Well, you got a platform every Sunday and within the community with the church. So I think that's a good, maybe even a title of a sermon. If you've already done that, I'm sure you've probably
That's
done
a
that at
good
some point.
idea. That's a good
Uh,
idea. I'm going to write that down.
there you
Always
go.
looking for ideas.
Well, David, I have had just an absolutely wonderful time getting to know you more and chatting with you about all the things. I've learned so much just in this short amount of time, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well.
I absolutely did. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been fun to get to know you a little bit too, brother.